DocTalk is brought to you by Multimin USA, manufacturers of Multimin 90, sure trace mineral supplementation by timed injection.
Hi there, folks. Welcome to DocTalk. I'm excited about today's show, and I'm really thankful that you joined us today. And my guest today is going to be Dr. Chris Reinhardt, who is an associate professor and our feedlot extension specialist for the state of Kansas. We're going to talk about receiving calf nutrition, pick up where we left off from last week. It's going to be a great show. Thanks for joining us. See you here after the break.
Multimin is one of those products you can use to get the ultimate performance out of cattle. Around 90 to 95% of our calves are either AI or embryo transplant. Since we've started using the Multimin, we're up around 70 to 75% conception on our first AI service, and a product like this is very beneficial for us.
Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value. This segment is brought to you by Norbrook Laboratories, manufacturers of Normycin LA, Normectin Plus, 1%, and Poron, the practical choice for your herd.
Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Folks, this is a friend and colleague, Dr. Chris Reinhardt. He works with me here to help direct the Beef Cattle Institute at Kansas State University. He's an associate professor over in the Department of Animal Sciences and Industry, and his duty is to be our state feedlot extension specialist here in the state of Kansas. Covers a lot of country, sees a lot of cattle, works with a lot of producers. Tickled to death to have you here.
It's a great opportunity. Glad to be here.
Well, you do a lot for K-State, and you do a lot for the state of Kansas, Chris, and we're proud of you. And we're going to talk today about nutrition of these newly arrived calves. And let's start out with, and I mentioned it last week, but I don't think we can overemphasize hay.
And the one thing I'll go the next step is quality. Let's not skimp on the quality. We've got our work cut out for us to get them on feed, get them into the bunks, get them comfortable coming to the bunks, get them comfortable in their new home. So let's not skimp on the quality. Let's save the junk for maybe the finishing period where it's only 7 or 8% of the diet. Let's feed the junk to the open cows maybe this winter. Let's get the good quality grass hay or grass alfalfa mix in front of those calves.
Good. Now, how do you go about introducing the milled ration? What's kind of your general rule of thumb or what you do?
I've learned from a lot of really smart people in this industry over a long period of time, and what seems to work the best is, again, get them coming to the bunk to that good quality hay, but then start to introduce that milled diet, that mixed diet on top of that hay that they're already comfortable eating and eating well.
And then after they start to consume that hay on a regular basis, then you just pull the hay out and go with the milled ration?
Yeah, once they're eating both, a number of people throw around a lot of times maybe 0.5% of their body weight, 3 pounds of a fairly dry diet on a 6-weight calf to start. And once they're all eating that, they really don't need the hay anymore.
And so the milled ration you're putting on there just kind of as a teaser, tester, get them used to it?
Yeah, and that's what's critical too, the quality of the hay, but also quality of that diet. We want to make sure we're using the best ingredients in the best possible diet.
Well, we're getting a little bit close to the break, and I want to come back to the starter diet and our makeup of that starter diet, whether it's ingredients or whether it's the chemistry of the starter diet. But some of the stuff that we've seen with these calves and hay can't be overemphasized.
Exactly. We can go back to the 1960s, 1970s when some really good research, some foundational research was done that kind of taught us a mix is best. We don't need to go all hay for the starting period, but they definitely shouldn't be started straight onto a hot diet either.
Great information. Sometimes I say hay is more important than the vaccine. Still need to vaccinate. Anyway, after the break, we're going to talk about starter diets with Dr. Chris Reinhardt. Thanks for joining us.
This segment was brought to you by Brute Cattle Equipment, makers of the Brute Stealth Hydraulic Chute. If the chute fits, swear by it. Visit our website for more information. And by Lalaman Animal Nutrition, dedicated to the development and production of natural and differential solutions for animal nutrition.
Dr. Dan here. Whether I'm driving up and down the roads covering the state of Kansas, or I'm getting between Riley and Manhattan for my job, I'm driving a Ford truck. I'd like you to come out and visit my friends here at Dick Edwards Ford. They have a truck that'll suit your needs, whether you're looking for power with a Power Stroke diesel, or if you're looking for fuel efficiency with the new EcoBoost engine, they got a truck that's just right for you. They're located 2 miles east of the Town Center Mall in Manhattan, Kansas, and they'll bend over backwards to help you. And I'll see you down the road.
Beef producers need a practical choice when antibiotic therapy is required. More than ever, they are reaching for non-prescription Noromycin 300 LA from Norbrook. Specially formulated to produce sustained antibiotic blood levels up to 4 days in cattle, Noromycin 300 LA delivers economic, broad-spectrum disease management for pneumonia, shipping fever, pink eye, wound infections, and foot rot. See for yourself why Norbrook's Noromycin 300 LA is the practical choice for your herd.
This hog is head over hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Getting ready to work cattle for pre-breeding and calf vaccinations? There's no better time to use a safe, modified live virus vaccine to prevent BRD. Titanium provides the correct equation for BRD with its excellent safety profile and a strong response and long duration of immunity. Ask your veterinarian about modified live virus vaccines and the 8 convenient combinations of titanium for the perfect pairing of performance and value.
This segment is brought to you by Rotomix, manufactured in the USA and designed for feeding performance in the feedlots, beef production, dairy, and cow-calf operations.
Hi folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Chris Reinhardt. We work at Kansas State University. It's where we're filming this, and Dr. Reinhardt is the State Feedlot Extension Specialist and an associate professor over in the Department of Animal Science and Industry. And Chris, when we're talking about starter rations, let's just kind of build one for the guests that we have today. Let's build a starter ration for these calves, a total mixed ration coming out of the mill. What are some of our building blocks of this ration?
What we used to always say was something in the range of a 50-50 blend of high-quality forage and roughages and concentrates, that being grains and grain byproducts and protein supplements. So something in kind of that mix of half and half. That might be 60-40, might be 40-60.
Okay, and so we have half the ration generally as roughage and half as concentrate protein. What are some of your ingredients that you like to use or don't like to use? Is there any of them we need to stay away from?
One thing that's really changed in my aging career now is the addition of the corn byproducts, the milling byproducts. Okay. And that would be distiller's grains or gluten feed, either in wet or dry form. And one thing they do is they bring a lot of good energy and good quality protein, but they also buy us a little bit of comfort on the roughage side. And roughages are expensive, especially as a form of energy. They don't have a lot of energy, so I can actually get a lot of energy and protein from these byproducts, pull back my grain, and also maybe pull back on the hay a little bit.
What are some of the limits on the byproducts as far as starting calves? Is there any general rule? Because I know we can go too high with some of the sulfate and issues like that. But what is the general rule of thumb for a starter ration on using a byproduct? Starter
ration, I'd probably want to keep it down to around 30-35% dry matter basis of the total diet.
Okay, so we can go with the byproducts like a wet distillers or a wet gluten feed at 30-35%, about a third of a starter ration on a dry matter basis. So got to remember, folks, that's not a third of the as fed, because there's a lot of moisture in those products.
That really complicates it for everybody. They're a wet byproduct. They range from 60 down to 40% dry matter. And so, yeah, just like you mentioned, just to say that they're a third of the diet isn't accurate at all.
Well, and it goes back to stressing the importance of getting with that nutritionist, or even if you're a veterinarian, some veterinarians do know nutrition. joking to you veterinarians. Now, but getting with somebody to help you balance that ration so you can get it and use these products.
If we've got calves coming in that are going to have health challenges, maybe weather is pushing them away from the bunk, whatever have you, their intake isn't going to be up to the level we'd like it to be at, so protein is critical.
Exactly. Yep. And so when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about starter rations, but how about let's move into some of the stuff on bunk read and bumps and cuts and how to manage the bunks of these cattle.
You bet.
Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
And thank you for watching Doc Talk. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a minute. Thanks.
This tip brought to you by Baytril 100 Enrofloxacin Injectable, now approved for use in controlling BRD in high-risk cattle. Baytril 100, right the first time, whether it's controlling BRD in high-risk cattle or treating BRD.
Hi there, it's Dr. Dan with your On the Farm tip, and today we're going to talk about downed animals, specifically beef cows. When we have downed animals, we can't move those animals by dragging them or lifting them with chains. What we have to work with is we have to pick those animals up to move them to a different location. You're going to want to use a sled, a lowboy, the bucket of a loader, something like that to move those animals. Once you've moved them, you need to make sure that you provide shelter, nutrition, and water for these animals. As they continue to respond and rise, those animals will go back into production. If they don't, make sure that you consult with your local veterinarian and make sure this animal gets the best possible care. You're watching Dr. Thompson here on Doc Talk on your On the Farm tip, and we'll see you down the road.
With BRD, every second counts. And when you get new high-risk cattle, you've got a choice to make. You can either take your chances and wait and see what happens, or you can take charge of BRD. Right from the start, treat bacteria up front with Baytril 100 Enrofloxacin Injectable, now approved by the FDA for BRD metaphylaxis in high-risk cattle. Ask your veterinarian about Baytril 100 and make it your go-to drug to control BRD in high-risk cattle or for treatment of BRD. Baytril 100, right the first time.
Got cattle? Rotomix manufactures a complete line of energy-efficient rotary and vertical feed mixers for feedlots, beef production, dairy, and cow-calf operations. Our mixers are available with the patented Generation 2 staggered rotor, the industry standard for feeding wet rations that include wet distiller's grain. Made in the USA, Rotomix mixers are designed for feeding performance that American cattlemen and dairy producers have come to expect. Rotomix, proud to offer a better mix in less time using less fuel.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by Fink Beef Genetics. Our 23rd annual bull sale featuring 400 Angus and Charolais bulls is Wednesday, October 30th. Contact us at 785-293-5106 for more information and to be added to our mailing list.
Hi folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. We're here with Dr. Chris Reinhardt, who's the State Feedlot Extension Specialist at Kansas State University. He's an associate professor, he's a ruminant nutritionist, and a good friend of mine. And we do a lot of work together, bouncing around the state of Kansas and looking at cattle and working in feed yards and solving problems, if we can, managing dilemmas. And today we're going to talk about something that we do a lot of work with, and that's starting these calves on feed. And we started talking about this starter ration. So how much do I put in the bunk the first time?
That's where we come back to that 0.5% of body weight. I just say 3 pounds on a 6-weight calf on a dry matter basis on top of that good quality hay, and we see how they eat it. We really got to read the cattle, read those calves. Every batch of calves is different. I might be weaning my own calves year after year, and guess what? They're not going to eat the same year in, year out, whether it's due to weather, health issues, whatever have you. So we got to read the cattle. If they eat that 3 pounds the very first day and are begging for more, now we can move them on up the scale.
Okay, now that we're talking about moving them on up, while I have them on that one ration or that starter ration, how high can I bump their feed each day when I, or cut it or whatever?
The fact that you've got about half roughage in there buys you a lot of safety valve, a lot of insurance. But again, we don't want to bump them 5 pounds because really we don't know where those cattle are. But you can definitely bump them 2 to 3 pounds a day as we're moving up. We call it trying to find the cattle, find what level of energy they really want. And so yeah, on that number one diet, 2 to 3 pounds would probably be a good place to start.
And if they keep going up, go with them while they're on these types of rations?
When they're on this half roughage diet, definitely. We want to be able to find them, give them all the energy they can handle.
Not something you'd probably recommend on a 90% concentrate ration.
Exact opposite. Once we get them up onto that high energy diet, even a hot grower, we want to kind of take more baby steps.
And make those cattle prove that they can stay at those intakes, maybe leave them there for a day or two.
I call it bump and hold. If I bumped them yesterday on that high energy diet, I want to hold them today and make them demonstrate they can handle it.
Okay. Well, you mentioned bunk reading, and you know, we read bunks and we read the cattle. So can you kind of tell me the difference on what you're looking for in reading the bunk on trying to determine whether to go up or not?
Yeah, there's two really different schools of thought. The one, and I think it's simple for the operator who's got a lot of enterprises, farming, ranching, etc., is every morning you go out and you don't want to see a whole lot of feed left out there. On the other hand, you don't want them to be so hungry and aggressive. Again, I guess that's where reading the cattle comes in. If all 100 calves are standing there waiting for you when you're really just there to check the bunks, we know we're behind those cattle and they're asking for more.
We're going to come back after the break. We're going to wrap up with Dr. Chris Reinhardt talking about starting these calves on feed. We're sure glad you joined us. We'll see you after the break.
This segment is brought to you by Purple Wave Auction, the easiest, most straightforward way to sell used equipment. Purple Wave, straight, simple, sold.
From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. A new and comprehensive study out of K-State says that the useful life of the Ogallala Aquifer, the lifeblood of agriculture in the High Plains, can be extended for decades by employing more conservative use of that essential water resource in the near term. K-State civil engineer Dave Stewart.
But the benefit of doing that is that by saving that water now, we'll have it in the future. And instead of having peak crop production, peak corn production around 2040 to 2050, that would shift to about 2070. And the prospects beyond 2070 are much brighter. There's a lot more corn being produced after 2070.
This is K-State Research and Extension.
Cow-calf, stocker, and feedlot producers know that effective parasite control improves overall herd performance and profitability. Norbrook offers a comprehensive, economical line of pour-on and injectable parasiticides for every livestock operation. Consult with your local animal health supplier to set up a program that protects your investment and brings larger cattle checks this fall. See for yourself why the Noromectin line from Norbrook is the practical choice for your herd.
The Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine is a leader in food animal research and education. Our researchers are constantly expanding the knowledge of animal health and food safety. Through the Veterinary Health Center and the Kansas State Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, we provide practical services for animal producers. Home of the Beef Cattle Institute, the college is committed to animal welfare training and research. The Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine, knowledge and service for the future of animal production.
Hi, I'm Kevin Ochsner, host of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman and Colorado Rancher. Join me each week as the National Cattlemen's Beef Association brings you the latest updates in industry information and market news. Plus, each week we provide important educational information and features on cattlemen from across the country just like you. And we can't forget our favorite cowboy poet, Baxter Black. Join me for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, debuting Tuesday nights at 8:30 Eastern, right here on RFD TV.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Chris Reinhardt, who's an associate professor over in the Department of Animal Science and Industries, and he is the state feedlot extension specialist for the state of Kansas. And Chris, we've been talking about reading the bunks and getting these cattle started on feed. Can you talk to me a little bit about reading the cattle?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about reading bunks is being able to see how the cattle are behaving at that time before you deliver that morning feeding. And our target, once we're up onto say the grower diet, the number 3 on up to the finisher, what we'd really like, sort of the ideal ratio, is 1/3 of the cattle are coming to the bunk, they're interested in what we're doing up there. 1/3 of the cattle might be standing, going to water, really not interested in the bunk yet, and 1/3 of the cattle are completely content and most likely laying down. That means they have all the energy they can handle. We're not too far ahead of the cattle if we're not seeing a lot of feed left in the bunk, but we're also not behind the cattle. We're half or more are standing at the bunk waiting for that first delivery.
Cool. Well, I think it's important because a lot of times we look at one and not the other, and being able to see those cattle respond to feed is pretty powerful when you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on in that pen. You sure don't want to see them all stacked up at the bunk, or they say chasing trucks as they go by, because then you're really behind them.
The other thing I like to see is when we're on that, let's say that hot grower on up to the finisher, once we've established how much energy those cattle want, we're rarely more than a pound and a half of dry matter ahead or behind those cattle. So at that point, after we've established what that intake is, maybe let's say 18 pounds of dry matter, we're not going to be far off, even with a weather front. We don't want to make huge moves at that point.
Big time. Speaking of weather and starter rations, got to keep it fresh.
Yeah, as we get into fall in Kansas, we can get some really nasty storms through. It's going to soak the bunk, it's going to soak the feed. That feed will go out of condition real fast. This is where the fun part of cattle feeding comes in. We've got to scoop the bunks, get that feed out of there, get fresh feed in front of them. As they come back to the bunk, we want a good diet there waiting for them.
Yep, and then some of these wet feeds with hot weather.
Yeah, if we've got maybe some corn silage, these wet byproducts in there, and 100-degree days as we've had recently, that feed can go out of condition. It can mold and start to put off some off odors. The cattle will back away from that. Again, we've got to scoop the bunks and start over.
Scooping or blowing the bunks out or whatever you have. The older I get, the harder it is to scoop those bunks, but scooping bunks and keeping fresh feed is important.
Again, intake is everything, and we want to give that calf every opportunity to eat well.
Well, sure appreciate you being on the show and spending some time with us.
We got a great team, Doc.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And we appreciate you watching DocTalk as well. If you want to know more about what Dr. Reinhardt and I do here at Kansas State University, you can go on the web and find us at www.vet.ksu.edu. Remember, we always recommend that you work with your local practitioner. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson here from the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. You've been watching DocTalk this morning. We're sure glad you joined us, and I'll see you down the road.
Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value.
DocTalk, produced in cooperation with Drovers Cattle Network and Bovine Veterinarian. For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com. DocTalk was brought to you by Multimin USA, manufacturers of Multimin 90, sure trace mineral supplementation by timed injection.
My name's Tim Todd. Along with my wife Chris, we own and operate Green Mountain Angus Ranch out of Rygate, Montana. We've been in the Angus business for about 30 years now. We sell about 350 bulls a year. We have a production sale in the fall, the third Friday in November, and we have a private treaty sale in the spring. We've been using the Multimin product for about 7 years now. We started using it off the recommendation of our embryologist. He suggested that we give our recip cows a shot prior to putting embryos in. We had a real good conception rate that spring, and we've been using the product ever since. This area of Montana can be a little deficient in copper. That's one of the 3 main minerals in Multimin, and so with that we brought our copper levels in our cattle up to where they need to be. We've seen an increase of 5 to 6% in our conception rate in our AI program. You start getting 30 to 40 more AI calves in a year. We're showing a huge return by using the product in those regards. We give our cows a shot of Multimin pre-calving for the immune system of the unborn calf. She will transfer the minerals into the unborn calf through the blood system. When the calf is born, he has a high level of mineral in his liver, which will help with his immune system. In our particular operation, we lease a lot of pasture, so it's real important for these cattle to stay healthy. We don't get the opportunity to check them like we'd like to. The least sickness, the least foot rot we have, the better off we are. So with the use of multi-min, that's two of the big benefits we've seen. Healthier cattle, less maintenance.